Okay. So we're just going to start. We're doing a Zoom pre-record with my new friend John Compton, who is also my latest and final contributor to an anthology, which is coming out in 3 days. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but we are going to do it. Called White and White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus. And uh, Mr. Compton is a gay poet in living in Kentucky in Trump country, which is horrible. I'm so sorry
Horrible.
that, and I guess identifies as neurodivergent, like as I do. And so this poem that John sent me is really wild. I mean, it's kind of disturbing and it's kind of masochistic fantasy about basically being, it's begging to be, fucking just dominated in the most extreme fashion. So I think which is very much of a fit with Bauhaus, the themes of the songs like our Cheetah Nick, um, from I forget which album, which has that, the chorus like crack that whip, right? Gonna crack that whip. And so also, I think it's beautiful that we have so many people in this book who are just fucking sick weirdos. And I include among those that, exclusive club, if you will, myself, my friends, Caitlin R. Kiernan, Poppy Z. Brite, um, now Billy Martin, John Shirley, who was created the cyberpunk genre with William Gibson and Bruce Sterling, started that out, which led to basically the Matrix and the world we live in today. And then some other sick fucking weirdos, John Palisano, who's a Bram Stoker award-winning author, who's a screenwriter for Ridley Scott, and he has a band with people like Heather Graham, the actress. And then we have Jarbo, who was the industrial music pioneer with originally did a lot of electronic, abrasive electronica, and then joined the band Swans with Michael Gyra, and now I was introduced to um, Jarbo's friend Tara Van Flower, um, by Jarbo when I approached Jarbo and I said, "Hey, could you send me something I'm doing I know she was a huge fan of Burroughs and of Bauhaus, and she's collaborated with David J. Haskins, and so I was like, "Hey, Jarbo, could you send me something?" She says, "Sure, but you need to talk to Tara Van Flower." And so I'll just happen to have a novel. Where do I do these things? So yes. So for the people, man, I got a lot of just a lot of crap lying around. So, but so as I showed John, this is a novel called Violet by Tara, and it's beautiful, beautiful as he
Mhm.
signed to me, and like so um
That is awesome.
it is really beautiful book. And so anyway, and then we have my friend Carrie Lee Crum, who who contributed. It's like one of the amazing things about these anthologies, they're absolutely pioneering because nobody else has done these things at all. Carrie Lee Crum um, founded at the age of 14 years old a little band called The Runaways, and you may have heard of them. You may be familiar with songs like California Paradise. Turn on the radio, hear the rock and roll. That's hers. She wrote that song. She also wrote Waiting for the Night. She also wrote Secrets and some other songs, which I can't talk about. And these people mostly know the Runaways for, you know, Cherry Bomb, which was sung by a MAGA asshole, Sherry Curry, who has me blocked on Facebook. And the less said about Sherry Curry, fuck you, Sherry Curry, the better. Okay. Um, John, she friended me on Facebook, and then as soon as she found out I wasn't like a fascist asshole, that she blocked me,
Wow.
right?
That's ugh.
Ugh, you know,
Ugh.
I wasn't even aware that because I was like backstage with Motorhead in 2011, and like she sang "Killed by Death." She came out and sang "Killed by Death" with the band, and I was backstage and I was like something about her. I just read her book, Neon Angels, and but for some reason I didn't want to talk to her. Now I know why. It was sort of like my
Uh-huh.
instincts were like kicking in, going, "Girl, you do not want to go down that road, man. You just do not want to, you know, the sheer hatred that's exuded from her nasty ass pores, right?
Hmm.
Um, she's bad news." So, and it's like, well, these days, if you say anything, you do anything, you'll get on the radar and you'll be surveyed and probably will be all, on the wrong side of the barbed wire fence. But hey, fuck them, fuck MAGA, right? Fuck
Yeah,
MAGA.
fuck the maggots.
Okay.
I like
Um,
to call them maggots.
Maggots, right? Dripping, oozing monsters, monstrous,
Yes.
monstrous, um, depraved. They call us depraved.
Yeah.
Like the maggots are some of the biggest consumers of transgender porn.
Oh, yes, I heard.
They're
I was,
really into that. They're probably
uh-huh.
more turned on by transgender bodies than transgender people.
Hmm.
A lot of transgender friends that I have body dysphoria and really are uncomfortable with their bodies because dysphoria, right?
Hmm.
Which is weird. I mean, it's not weird that they have body dysphoria, but it's weird that these people are so obsessive about literally genociding transgender people, are so obsessed with their, you know, like transgender cocks or whatever, Get over it, right? Get over it. Admit it.
Yep.
Admit it,
Yeah, just come out of the closet and
right?
it's gonna be okay.
It's going to be okay, right? It's nothing bad will happen to you.
No, the only
Jesus
bad
will
things that have happened to you are from your own self and the people you worship.
Jesus will not appear in a red haze and then drag you to hell. You-
No.
That will not
Th-
occur.
So I wish he would. Just in general, not even with the trans thing, just in general, just come take them all out.
Yeah. Well, I wrote this novel called Bad Sunset or A Fistful of Eyeballs. Let me see if I can find it. And the basic premise of Bad Sunset is that Jesus comes to town and he's
That
pissed and he's a gunslinger.
is awesome.
And this is in the hands, this is, well, I have a friend named Emily Frank who is also in this anthology with us, the Bauhaus anthology. And she's the web mistress, not a geek thing, but it could be the web mistress for Billy Bob Thornton. And so I approached her and said, "Hey, could you, because I have a friend who was no longer a friend, but who was, you know, who was the one who introduced me to Lemmy, and was like Motorhead's publicist for a long time. And and they said, "Hey, why don't you send this book to Billy Bob?" So I was like, "Okay." So I did, and I signed it. I did a drawing of him as Sling Blade, which is one of my favorite films.
Oh yeah, that movie is amazing.
It's amazing, right? And talk
Uh-huh.
about like a scary performance by who is that? Who is the guy in the he's the singer, the country western singer who's in the movie, who's the bad
Oh,
mean
was
guy.
that Dwight Yoakam?
Is
No.
Dwight Yoakam. Is Dwight
Okay.
playing against type, and it was a fascinating performance. And when I was doing the sketch of Billy Bob as the Sling Blade character, I sort of discovered that he's got, I mean, completely transformed not only his face, like his just like it was like a clown makeup.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. He's a really, really brilliant, multi multi-talented guy. So hopefully, Billy Bob, if you're watching this, please, 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 I want this to be made into a movie by you, and we can make all kinds of money. We need to be making
Yes.
some money, don't you think?
Yes. At least enough to survive.
There's a strong potential with this project that I'm doing that I really want to talk about um in a while. But I want to find out more about John Compton. So tell me about you're a poet and you're a gay poet, and you publish with this thing called like I'm tempted to say Orange Blossom Press, but uh,
Flower song.
Flower Songs. Yeah, my brain just converted it into Orange Blossom. I don't know. I like Orange Blossom, right?
Yeah, orange blossoms are nice.
Comfortable,
Yes.
friendly, like.
Yes.
So, so tell me about your poetry. When did you start writing poetry?
It's easy to remember because it was 2 days after 9/11. Um, and I was in school and I was bored. And so I was writing, I was in social studies or something, and I'm not too fond of, well, I'm not too fond of school. But so I was
I'm
writing
not
and someone
either,
looked.
and I've taught college, so I don't like school.
No, it's not like it's not built to learn, it's built to program.
Yes,
That's just my thoughts.
preach.
Um, but so I was writing in the margins of my notebook, and someone leaned over and was like, "Oh, you're writing poetry," and I was like, "What's poetry?" So I went and I, looked it up on the websites. I don't. It might have been Google. It was like 20 some odd years ago.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and so I found poets, and then Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath were some of the first two I
Yes,
found. Yeah, and then
preach,
Carl Sandburg was
preach.
another, and then Allen Ginsberg and the Beat Poets,
Yes, 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 yes.
um and other poets, but I can't. Um, E. Cummings,
Yeah,
Diane LaPrima. I probably butchered her name. Diane LaPrima. She was
yeah,
one of my favorites. So
yeah.
so and so so I just started reading and stuff, and I became obsessed, obsessed, very obsessed. And so then I was a horrible poet too in the beginning. And when I turned 18, so I was writing and all that stuff. So when I turned 18, I as a stepping stone, as like a next chapter, I took all the poems I had written and I put them in my grandmother's driveway and I set them all on fire.
Wow, that's
It's
hardcore.
Yeah, well, they weren't very good, but it was like those were I was giving them back to the world, and they
Yeah.
taught me a lot and everything. So so that's my beginnings of being a poet. And then, you read everything. And then so I wrote to poets, and only one wrote me back, Fanny Howe. And then it was really cool because I didn't have a poem published in a magazine or nothing.
Right.
And she talked to me like we'd been friends forever. And she was secretly um, putting, because I'd send her poems and she'd send me poems.
Yeah.
And so she's putting together a pamphlet or a collection, like just, of the poems. And she sent them to Bill Corbett of Pressed Wafer, who is like a godsend. He was the one that opened every door he could possibly do it for me. But he got in contact with me and he's like, and I had no clue about any of it. And he's like, I'd like to publish your first book.
Oh, wow.
And and yeah, and so we did that. And so but he was he taught me a lot and he also spoiled me. Um and he taught me what a publisher could be because a lot of publishers are not what they could be. And so like and any so my first, and I'm not trying to gloat or anything, and it's funny because I had no clue about the publishing industry. I had no clue about book sales.
Yeah.
I knew novels sold a whole lot, but I didn't know nothing about poetry. So I didn't have social media. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And so he believed in everyone he published, but he believed in me. And my first book sold over 700
That's
copies.
great.
Well, yeah, at the time, I didn't know it was great. And so I remember one time I apologized to him
Yeah.
and he told me to shut up in the nicest, kindest way. And only until I got social media did I realize that was a good number. But like John Ashbery had my book.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and the biggest cliffhanger ever, he died. He passed away before he finished reading it, but Bill told me he was enjoying it
Oh my
because
God.
he didn't tell him like, oh, this is shit.
That's so great.
But like, yeah, every poet he knew, and he knew a lot because if you know Bill, his house was open door, and he would do like dinners and everything. So every poet he knew, and any poet that I liked, he would like find out their information and then send them my book.
Yeah.
So like Wash had my book, and I have the biggest crush on him.
Uh-huh.
Um, so like yeah, and so but he was really like big on like, and my goal was to have him just publish me forever
Yeah.
because I figured he'd be immortal. But he was like talking about like, we're gonna find you another publisher, and I'm gonna get the contract first and make sure they're not trying to fuck you over
Right.
and everything. So it was funny, but he let me have everything I wanted in my book. Like the cover was a photograph from my mom. He let me make it as big and crazy as I wanted to.
Wow.
So he also, and I've been poor forever. So he would send me books that he liked
Oh,
or that he was publishing or that his, like what's that one press? Duck Ugly Duck Press. He knew
uh-huh.
like the people of Ugly Duck Press, so he'd send me the books they were publishing and everything. So he made sure I had everything. And John Wiener's, I
Oh,
learned a
yeah.
lot through Bill because I didn't know him, and unfortunately he had passed away by the time I learned. But yeah, um and everything. Let's see. So once see, I ramble. That's what I do, and
No,
I
no, no, that's
jump.
great. That's
So
great.
in the end of 2019, I got married, and then
Congratulations.
thank you. And so that's when I got social media. So it wasn't really big until 2020 when COVID hit, and
Yeah.
all the doors closed, so everyone
Right.
went on social media, and so that's when I learned everything. Like that's when I really. So my first book come out in 2016,
Yeah.
and then in 2020, I was like sent into the world of poetry. And that's when my obsession like really got crazy. And I spend like 12 hours a day doing poetry.
Right.
And so I was like, I have to do everything poetry. So I became a poetry editor. I had a poetry show that I did daily and I interviewed poets and then they read and it was a JoJo show and I did a show every day for like 6 months. And and then I started sending out stuff and started getting books published. Um and but yes, and meeting everyone. My goal was to meet every poet I humanly possibly
Yeah.
could. I want to be friends with everyone. But and then that's when I learned too that, 700, because I'm not trying to be rude to anyone, and don't take this the wrong way. When I first got on social media, people were excited they had sold like 25 books in a
Yeah.
year. And my thought was, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Like this is, but I've been blessed and I've been lucky, and my books sell well, even though sometimes I come out with three or four a year, and everything. And it's weird. Like I live in Kentucky. I live between two churches. I live in the Red Bible Belt.
Oh wow.
There's literally signs that says blacks for Trump, like that's
Holy
how bad it
shit.
is. So, and I'm an introvert, and I don't go out, and I
Yeah.
don't roam around, and I have two friends that I go see. Well, like there, okay, there's the like I'm one of my like I'm friends with their spouses also, but like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
they're my two main friends,
Right.
and then everyone else. I collect them in a group. So when I say two friends, it's like two groups each.
Right.
But yeah, I don't do nothing. So it's really weird. And even though it's been like 4 years, or 5 years now, I've been inundated in the poetry world and the
Hmm.
poetry scene, the poetry community. It still like boggles my mind that people like my poetry and buy my books and want to interview me,
Right.
and invite me to readings. And so
Yeah.
it's still because in real life, and I say like real life as in, I know everything's real life, but in person, I'm country and I'm dumb, and I don't talk to anyone, and I don't have socialization, but on social media, I talk to everyone, and I'm very so it's weird that people know me and enjoy me and like me and everything. So I don't know where going with that, but it's weird how like my life has been in a shell for a long time, and now people talk about me and talk about me in general, not even to me. I hear people like, "Oh, I was talking about you the other day," and
Yeah.
and it's hard to process, like to get out of the like I'm a nobody. What the hell? What the hell is going on? Why
I
are
think.
these people?
Yeah.
But I always say I'm gonna publish until people get sick of me and they don't want my poems anymore, and then I just write and be a hermit crab. Um,
A lot of
but
us,
yeah, so.
a lot of us are like you. I like a lot of us feel that way about
Mhm.
ourselves. I know, and I'm talking about everybody who's part of this book. I mean, every fucking buddy. Like, and most especially Billy Martin. Billy Martin. Stopped, and I don't know all the particulars of his journey, but I have known Billy Martin since the '90s in real life, and it's a dear man, beautiful man, and he is disabled, and he has a lot of problems besides living down in New Orleans, where it's completely, absolutely corrupt, and the water board keeps socking him and his partner Gray with this like $30,000 a month water bill, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
And so but he was having so discouraged because of problems he was having with his publisher of and correct me if I'm wrong, Billy, but this the publisher of like the liquor series, which was kind of like these foodie mystery novels, which are set in New Orleans and featuring her, I mean his long running characters, um like G-Man and forget the other one. I mean, so if you want
She-Ra,
what?
She-Ra, He-Man and She-Ra. Is
No,
it She-Ra?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but G-Man but if you like, so I'm just saying to people who are my readers, if you for some reason you're a fan of Poppy Z Brite, but you haven't read the Liquor series, my God, hie thee to your nearest library and get yourself a copy of Liquor or Soul Kitchen or any of the books. There's about six of them, and they're delicious. You the value of X, um, and what was the other one? Duck, and you'll thank me. You really thank me. Some of these would be not available, I think, in your library, but they're through Subterranean Press, which is also where Kate Kiernan publishes. And Kate just came out with a new novel, or is going to have a new novel, so be on the lookout for that. But he was very, very discouraged. In fact, he just came back to publishing after a long, long hiatus of more than a decade. Hadn't written anything or hadn't published anything. And in the first story that he placed was in this anthology called The End of the World as We Know It, um, Tales of Stephen King's The Stand. And that is co-edited by Brian Keene and Christopher Golden for Cemetery Dance Publications with an introduction by Stephen King. And so that was the first story that he'd written in a long, long, long time. And it was called something about um, when human voices wake us and we drown, which is a line from Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. And so he was all excited, and a lot of us was following his adventures on Facebook and on his Patreon. It was like, oh wow, because he also wrote um, this book called Water if God Wills It, Spirituality and Religion and the Work of Stephen King, which would be published by Cemetery Dance Publications as well. And so he was all excited, and we were all excited, thinking, hey, maybe we'll get a new Poppy Z Brite novel. Wouldn't that be awesome, right? Well, that's too much to ask for because he he couldn't sell his next story. And then it was like, man, so then he got really discouraged. And we were like, oh, and we all give him squeezy hugs. And then I'm big on squeezy hugs, by the way.
Uh-huh.
It's a it's a like a
Yeah.
small bear thing, right? Small bear. Yes,
Squeezy hugs.
squeezy hugs. Exactly. Um, they're free, they're simple, and you can do them anytime, anywhere.
Yes.
So 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 then Billy, I don't know the exact circumstances, but Billy got back into publishing and was then picked up by some more anthologies, and then Independent Legions. Alessandro Manzetti did a graphic novel of Calcutta Lord of Nerves, which is from the Swamp Fetus collection, and it's called let's see for the show and tell for the peoples. If you don't know, this is also known as Wormwood. You can get it in paperback. You can get it hardcover from Borderlands Press, and this is has a lot of great stories. So some of the greatest stories ever written by anybody at all, any time. You want to know who was an advocate of Poppy back in the day? Big talent gives off thermonuclear vibes. I can feel them. The last time I said it, I was talking about Dan Simmons. Now I'm saying it about Poppy Z. Brite. This is a voice we're going to be hearing for a long time, Harlan Ellison. So, and this was signed to me by Poppy. Alex, happy WHC, this World Horror Convention. Stay fetal, love and slack. Poppy Z. Brite. Right? And this
Yes.
like People who are see, it's interesting because when you actually know people, like my dad is a really famous he's a sort of like a futurist and a whimsicalist, he calls himself, and his stuff has been on an inventor of of objects that don't work. And his stuff has been on like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and the New York Times and Whole Earth Re Whole Earth Review, Whole Earth Catalog, and at the Atlantic, et cetera, et cetera. But but when you're, you know, when you're like really, really well known, you don't think of it that way. And when your
Mhm.
family, everybody in my family is very has sort of incredible prestige, like for generations, you don't really think of it. And for me, it was sort of like back in the day when we're starting out with my friends, Thomas Roche, you know, and Poppy and Caitlin R. Kiernan, we were absolute beginners. I mean, we were just it was very, very exciting thing that happened during the 90s because we were sort of early adopters of really like the electronic village concept, which was promoted by this magazine that my dad was a frequent contributor to. Is called The Whole Earth Review, which was a spin-off of something called The Whole Earth Catalog, right? And the cover is by R. Crumb. So you say, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I'm going to show you something else. This is completely gratuitous, and this is pornographic. And so, fortunately, I don't get monetized by YouTube. So, okay, um, this is Draculina magazine. This is completely just okay. This is completely gratuitous, and there's absolutely zero reason that I'm you know showing you some BDSM pornography here. Um, why? Well, I think it's beautiful,
Hmm.
and people can and maybe flag this and report it. They're going to report my shit anyway,
Yeah,
so I don't
that's some
care,
people's favorite thing to do.
right? So,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Cry.
yeah. So, fuck you guys, and fuck Sherry Curry again, hard. Um, so anyway, but what I was saying is like a lot of us throw ourselves under the bus, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. I
Mhm.
mean, Tara Vanflower doesn't really think a whole lot of herself. For the people who are viewers of our show, I mean, Tara's been on the show, and just please, like, Google search YouTube for Lycia and Tara Vanflower and typo negative, and you'll find that her work is extraordinary. It's very mesmerizing. It sounds like nothing else. It's very peaceful, and you will fall in love with it. Um,
Some Oh, I was gonna say, sorry, I interrupted. I was gonna say someone, it reminded me when you were saying, someone told me one time a while ago, they're like, if I didn't talk to like, cause, oh, how do I, they say, if I didn't, your poetry and you are two totally different. They're like, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't know how country you are. And I think that's funny
yeah.
because I like to say I have a auditorium of dead poets in my head, and I'm two people. I'm the poet and I'm the person
Yes.
because the person is very country. I like to say I'm white trash, but the poet, because it's just I'm not very smart. But then the poet, when I write and I'm writing, like it's a whole different like persona, and so it's always fun. Um, fun to even like me read my poems. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? What the hell is going on?
right?
Like, I barely can string 5 words together sometimes if just talking and stuff.
Well, I mean, the same is true of like I'm not saying that she's not articulate, but our friend Ellen Mabey, who's also in the book, and this is this is a crayon pack from Ellen's book. This is called the Ellen Mabey Coloring Book,
Oh,
and I
that's
always
fun.
like to show this on the show. Um, and this was put out by this is published by my friend Emily Frank, who's also in the book, and let me give you, so this was from back in 1998. So, and we just had her on the show just now. And you didn't watch the special Ellen Maybe episode, but
I
so,
have to go back and watch them. I'm sorry.
okay. So it says, Ellen Maybe was born July 10th, 1964 in Wisconsin. Since then, she's been the Los Angeles representative on the MTV Spoken Word Tour. Um, she has traveled the Western United States opening for the Karma Bums. Her poetry has been published in Tsunami, Blue Satellite, Sick, Dance of the Iguana, On Target, Red Dance Floor, Caffeine, and frequently heard on KPFK, KCRW, and KXLU in Los Angeles. Next spring, 21361, that's Henry Rollins, will publish her first bound collection. Occasionally, she giggles. She's just a lovely human being. You ask,
And in that picture, it looks like she's giggling. That picture is so fun.
right? She is
I
so
love that picture.
she is so fun. And like basically, whenever who's fans of Ellen's, people like Jackson Brown and Viggo Mortensen from of Lord of the Rings fame, and Henry Rollins and Exene Cervenka and Grail Marcus are huge fans of hers. And she was in the movie Dancing at the Blue Iguana, which is about strippers. It starred Jennifer Tilly and Daryl Hannah and Sandra Oh, and she portrayed a woman who's basically Ellen Mabey reading her own poetry opposite Sandra Oh. So that's her. And um, she's a huge film buff. So I'm delighted that the anthology that she proposed, Burning Hearts, the wildfire relief anthology, is now being made into a major documentary film by me and Vanessa H. Smith in New York, who's literally assembling a film crew to work on this movie. And I hope, John, that you will be part of this. I mean,
Oh, yes.
we can have your segment by Zoom, and Vanessa and I will interview you on camera, and you can read your poetry and whatever. But
Oh, wow. That is fact. Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
of course. And some of her films, like she's also was the producer with our other friend who's also in the book, Alexis Kraslovsky, who was also on the show with her and Ellen and um some and a few other people I'll get to, but which was Alexis Kraslovsky was some of her movies that she made include like The End of the Art World, where she profiled Andy Warhol and Jasper Johns and Robert Rauschenberg, and then Women Behind the Camera, which was just like a pioneering film about female, women in the movies, and Let Them Eat Cake, which is this amazing documentary of sort of like looking at the sources of our desserts. And she traveled around the world, and so she and Vanessa are very inspirational to me. And I wrote the what the title song of this film called Burning Hearts, the motion picture. And Alexis said that she can imagine that it would be, she can imagine it being sung by a children's choir in a church 100 years from now, when the song has become emblazoned in our hearts. And I was like,
Mhm.
you flatterer, you. Wow. Damn, I like you.
We're best friends now.
We're fast friends. Yeah, yeah, we're besties. We're
Uh-huh.
besties. And no, seriously, Alexis is formidable. I mean, she's a graduate of Yale University. Um, she's um, she's a pioneer in not only she's a pioneer in filmmaking, but she's a award-winning poet and novelist. So for the viewers who haven't had a chance to look into some Alexis Kraslovsky, my goodness, rent her movie like Let Them Eat Cake or Into the Art World. Her stuff is as pioneering as the people that she profiles. It's as pioneering as Andy Warhol. And one critic, I think it was the LA Times, said that her take on sort of on New York sort of grimy, Times Square, you know, like Taxi Driver era, New York more was was better than Martin Scorsese. So in Taxi Driver, which is, you know, I mean, Taxi Driver is just like one of my favorite films of all time, and not in a creepy way yet, but we'll get to that. So, so John, so we know each other through some mutuals. I think Chad Horn is one of the people.
Mhm.
So, and through Chad, I kind of discovered by accident like this whole network of like Kentucky poets who I think Wendell Berry is
Yeah.
in Kentucky. Who,
Yeah, I thought he was dead for the
yeah,
longest time, and he's
yeah.
not.
Wow, he seems like somebody who would have passed on a long time ago. But then again,
Yes.
so is Gary Snyder.
Yeah.
He's still around. And so I forget who. I think it was either Chad or Dan Denton who put me onto you, and then we became friends, and then um I chatted you up, and I was like, hey, do you want to? Because I'm a groomer. I'm a self-confessed groomer. I like to seduce people into my world of awesomeness because
Hmm.
because you wouldn't believe how many people hate me and have thrown me under the bus, and I've literally gotten murder threats and things like that. Um, I think it's because jealousy is a factor in people's worlds, and you wind up living rent free in people's heads, and they're like,
Hmm.
I can't be him, so I want him to die. That's
Yes.
very primitive logic, right? Just
That,
write some poems, so that I would say
uh,
to everybody out there who thinks that I should commit suicide, or this one guy sent me 100 pack of razors with instructions on how to slice my radial artery.
my
He
God.
was hated me because he's in love with me and he wants to fuck me. And I
Hmm.
was like, sorry, all of the boys and all the girls are, wanting to F you seek Amy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Britney Spears. Britney Spears. Okay, so can we talk about Britney Spears?
Yes. You want to talk about Brittany?
Yes. I want to talk some Britney, baby.
Brittany. Brittany, bitch.
I'm Britney, bitch. She's living in Mexico City now. I
Oh,
hope
yeah?
I hope she makes a total fucking dominating comeback and cracks the
Yes.
whip. And she's like the goddess. She's the modern day Marilyn Monroe. And so is
Yes.
Madonna. I'm also
Hmm.
Madonna, by the way. And people who don't know me think, who is Alex S. Johnson and who is he really? I alternate between being Gaga, Madonna, and Britney because
Hmm.
feel more powerful and it turns me on. That is just the fact, it turns me on.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so,
I wish I was Gaga.
right.
I've listened about Gaga. I know we're talking about Britney, but Gaga has a new song, Abracadabra,
Oh, yeah.
and Josh is my husband Josh is so annoyed with me because literally, and you probably heard it when we started the Zoom call, it was on, and it's been on repeat for
Mhm.
like 4 days straight, and
Yeah.
I've listened to nothing except for that. And Josh is like, "You do know there's other songs." I'm like, "But this one is my song I want to listen to right now."
Yeah, well, I mean, I can listen to I went through a whole period where the only thing that I listened to was telephone because
hmm
I have a beautiful, beautiful friend in LA in Torrance, actually, where I lived for a decade. His name is Dale Smith, so I'm going to send this to him. He's a beautiful gay black man. Um, and he's an artist and he's a poet. And we all love Gaga. Who doesn't? I mean, if you don't love
hmm
Gaga, there's something
Yeah,
like
wrong.
challenged about you, and we can, as a developmental educator, I can work with you, and we can.
Yeah.
It's a teachable moment, right? You
And
sing well.
Gaga's so okay. Gaga is so like dimensional too. Like she does everything. She can do everything.
Yeah, I think she's.
Push around.
I like
What were you?
dimensional. I like that word dimensional. I'm going to use
Yeah.
that in the poem. Hey,
Oh,
here's an idea. Here's an idea, John. Um, okay, I'm going to challenge you to something, to a poetry contest. All right, this is just
oh,
us, and anybody who's watching can participate. Right. So we're going to generate some words in this during this episode, and then we're each going to write a poem using those words, and then I may put out a chapbook. So anybody
oh,
who wants
that'd
to
be fun.
participate, so we're going to generate some keywords. And then actually I got this idea from my friend Don Kingfisher Campbell, who does
No, I know Don.
you know Don, right? You know
Yeah, I
Don.
know Don.
So yeah, and we're probably both in Four Feathers Press together, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dawn is Dawn of the Dead. Dawn, wow, Dawn, um, wow. I'm just being very, very associative and nonlinear. You know, I think that people who think in a kind of a very ABC sort of fashion, they're exhausting.
They are.
I want to, I don't know what to do with them. Like,
Me neither.
what?
I'm,
Can we talk?
and and
Can we talk?
and I'll be
I
really
feel like
bad
Barbara
too.
Streisand, can we talk?
Uh-huh. And I'm really bad too. I'll have a conversation and then at the end and 4 hours later I pick up the conversation right where it left off because I know where I'm going.
I
And the other
know.
person be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of Babs Streisand, you know who's a huge fan of Alexis Kreslowski? I was just talking about Barbara Streisand. Barbara
Oh,
Streisand.
that's cool.
And we also have a friend who just became a, a friend. Actually, a friend requested me, Krista Fuller, who was the widow of Samuel Fuller, who made Shock Corridor. And it's like one of the most influential directors in history, right? And beautiful person. So, and she was in Alphaville by Jean-Luc Godard. That's amazing. And she played opposite Barbara Streisand in What's Up, Doc by Peter Bogdanovich. So I'm talking about these are hardcore connections. And anybody
Mhm.
who like comes on board with Nocturnicorn Books is guaranteed to be successful in their career. Guaranteed to be successful. I mean, it is just a win-win situation. You may not um, be comfortable with my approach because as a business person, I'm a human being person, meaning compassion is more
Hmm.
important to me than money. And
Hmm.
so some people think I'm crazy, but I'm just like, well, you're
People,
crazy.
yeah, people reading my poetry is much more important to me than selling a book. And what I do, and I make sure all my presses know, is
Yeah.
if you live out of country or if you can't afford it, I will send you. I tell people on my own digital library, I'll send you a PDF and email because
Right.
I sell enough books and I'd rather people read. And shipping, costs $400 million to go out
Right.
of the United States. And
Exactly.
so. Yeah, so I tell everyone, you want to read my poetry, I'll send you every one of my books. I don't care.
Right. Right. Now I want to kind of put everything in context for the viewers because we're talking about some musicians that I think if you're if you have ears and a brain and a heart, you listen to Madonna seriously. You listen to Gaga seriously and you listen to Britney Spears seriously, bitch. If you don't, we can still be friends, but
Hmm.
and they're earworms. Every single song is a banger. You can pick up
Hmm.
Britney. I don't care if it's some Baby One More Time or Oops, I Did It Again. I mean, or Stronger. Their production numbers, and she does her own choreography, and she remembers all that stuff. Can you imagine what it would take to keep all of that in your head?
Oh God, I'm not, no, no.
So she's like
I'm
a,
shocked. Like reference to poetry, I'm shocked people remember their poems without
I know,
looking at
right?
them as they read.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
good Lord.
I have to just like check, um, and also, don't let me forget because I want to have you read your poetry, and I want to gonna read some of my poems.
Yes.
But so we're talking about musicians, and I started my career as a music journalist back in the 90s, where I always wanted to be like if Hunter S. Thompson wrote about music. It's like a combination of Lester Bangs and Hunter S. Thompson and William S. Burroughs. And I
Oh,
kind
that's
of
cool.
succeeded because I've been published by like Metal Hammer. I was a staff writer for Zero Tolerance magazine in the UK and Dark Angel magazine, which was in Melbourne. It's still legendary. Still, people still remember it. Blood Songs magazine. I've interviewed everybody. Like, I love goth and industrial music, and I will just confess, and heavy metal, and I will just say that I've interviewed, you know, Giton Damone from Christian Death and the late great Roz Williams. Ethan Maroulis, who was in Spawn Ranch, who was just amazing. So, people, you need to listen to some Spawn Ranch. He's in the Bauhaus book with me and John. And so a lot of musicians have come into my orbit because music journalism and just because of very fortuitous personal connections. So out of those personal connections, I got to know Lemmy Kilmister, as in the Lemmy Kilmister, as in God, and he was my friend who worked for him, and who was a close friend for more than a quarter of a century until they became unbearably awful. Um,
I don't mean to laugh.
kept 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 bugging me about, hey, you need to send your book The Death Jazz to Lemmy. And I'm like, Lemmy's not Lemmy, Lemmy is Lemmy, right? Lemmy is Lemmy. Please don't, I don't want to be, you know, I would, can you just imagine if you sent your baby, essentially, right? Your love child of you and the muse to Lemmy Kilmister, and he doesn't like it. I mean, it would be the best. I was thinking the best case scenario was that he would just completely ignore it, and every time that she bugged him, he would say, Oh yeah, well, I haven't had a chance because I'm fucking Lemmy Kilmister, right? God, right? And I'm too busy making albums like Ace of Spades and Iron Fist and, you know, like to bother with you and your world, right? So, but after the fourth try, um, she came back to me and she said, "Hey, Lemmy liked the your book." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "It's not bad, not bad." Which, like, people might think that that means terrible, or you're just like damning with faint praise. They don't know is that that's British. It's a British idiom. It means it's good. And Lemmy, of course, wouldn't say anything. He was not a polite guy who would just say some bullshit, to pacify you. I mean, he had no need to be nice to anybody. He's an incredibly gentle person and an intelligent person and funny as fuck. You know, he's one of the funniest, smartest people and kindest people I've ever met in my life. So, what's the point? Well, some musicians, I got to know a lot of musicians, including um, more recently Tara Vanflower of Lycia. We've talked about her. Jarbo, I've known early, since about 2009 when I profiled her for Metal Maniacs magazine. And I also profiled, I said, in Zero Tolerance, I also profiled somebody named um, McCannibal, who's the who's in a band called Psy. It's a Japanese black metal band, and they do a lot of Venom covers. And I did an interview with her for Metal Maniacs. It was called Mechanical Holocaust, and just righteous, righteous. I love heavy metal. It's like people want to see my Black
Hmm.
this Heaven and Hell tour shirt, and so I've interviewed like everybody. But I got to know Carrie Lee Chrome through, these very, very interesting circumstances. Let's just say that we became friends on Facebook, and then we became like collaborators in the sense that we started, she was just, we started playing around with songs, and I was like, and I was, it's sort of like you're having a beautiful dream, and you wake up and it's like, oh my God, I wish that was real. And then,
Hmm.
and you realize that it's not a dream. And it was like, as I realized that I was writing a song with Carrie Lee Chrome, I was writing a song with the woman who wrote California Paradise. But she's very, very raunchy, very kind of dirty, and her humor is very kind of like a lot of poop jokes and a lot of, vomiting jokes. And she's basically like a juvenile delinquent. You know, she is like, she says that she's like basically like a 12-year-old boy. That's her
Hmm.
mentality. And so she is in this book. How this book, White on White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus, came about. Okay, so, well, it goes back to William S. Burroughs. William S. Burroughs, right? Who's the godfather of the godfather of punk rock, godfather of everything. He's the godfather of cyberspace, is the godfather of, Michel Foucault, the French philosopher, said basically William S. Burroughs was the person who inspired him, the most. Now, so where were we? Okay, so Burroughs, um, so I don't know how to connect the dots, but it's all good. I'm just going to trust the flow. So there was a guy named Val Vale in San Francisco, and he is a Japanese American. He was actually was when he was born, I think he was born about 1945, and he was in an internment camp when he was a baby. And then he became part of the circle with City Lights books with Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Allen Ginsberg, and he who funded his enterprise was called Search and Destroy. It was like the first punk zine, and he went on to also, you know, funded by Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti. He created something called, well, research publications, and they in turn did some really very influential books like the Modern Primitives book, which my friend Lauren Rhodes, who created Modern Morbid Curiosity magazine, um, was did the layout for Modern Primitives. That was the book that inspired everybody to get like cock rings and shit like that. Right. And not necessarily, and it was also inspired people like the novelist Kathy Koja a lot. Um, and he did an interview. I mean, he became friends with William S. Burroughs. He did an interview with people who were associated with Burroughs and the people who sort of basically created industrial culture. One of those people was Genesis P. Orridge from Throbbing Gristle. And Genesis was also an occultist and not a dabbler, but the founder of the the Temple of Psychic Youth, and kind of basically a cult leader. But I've heard stories. I've heard that they were not a good, basic, not really good, but I didn't really want to talk about Genesis. But Genesis was a pioneer in so many ways. So anyway, they did a lot. Um, they did a lot, and so but Jen was into chaos magic and sigil magic. Do you know about sigil magic? I mean, have you? It seems like yeah, I ask these weird ass questions like of my guests. It's like, hey, dude, did you know about sigils and stuff?
I've heard of Sigil. I've heard
Yeah,
of it.
it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is like basically come really hard and have a I have like a take your intent and cover it up with a sort of a sigil is basically just like a scrambled design that you place over your intent to sort of like a to as a kind of a vehicle to send it into your intent into the etheric realm where it's going to like impregnate the goddess basically, right? And the
Mhm.
goddess gives birth to your intent, which is whatever you want. It doesn't have to be an orgasm. It could be pain, intense pain. Any strong emotion is going to um, vibrate at the frequency of intent, which is going to connect the basically it's sort of like um, the programming code for reality itself. And I'm not even kidding. I'm not
Mm.
even kidding. I mean, if anybody who's practiced it also is like terrifying. It's like playing with fire. But you have to know what you're doing. Not everybody can do this successfully because you have to be completely at the same time committed and impartial and just let it happen. And so there was a guy in England named David J. Haskins who came up with he was you know in a working class town in England, and he and his some of his mates, Peter Murphy, his brother Kevin Haskins, and a guy named Daniel um, Gaston Ash, with all of those sort of like David Haskins and Daniel Gaston and these are their act and Kevin Haskins. It's they sort of they all sound alike. They sound like that they're made up names. Well, Peter Murphy is um, has a name that's kind of distinct from these other names that sort of I get them mixed up with each other. And then so David, I don't know when this was because well, he and Peter and Kevin and Daniel formed Bauhaus in I think it was 1978, and the first single was Bela Lugosi's Dead. But so he um, David read this interview by Val Vale of Genesis P. Orridge, and they were talking about sigil magic and how to do it. And so David was very interested, and he did this ritual, and he summoned to summon William S. Burroughs, and that's how we got in touch with William Burroughs. Well, I don't think he needed magic. I mean, he could have just called up Val and say, "Hey, Val, could you introduce me to William S. Burroughs?" Right? Um, and that would have happened pretty much guaranteed. You know, so, oh, I'm the guy from Bauhaus. You know, I wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead, right? Could you introduce me to William S. Burroughs? Yeah, I think we could arrange that. I think that we could make that happen. But so that's how David got embroiled with a group of like psycho magicians that are the ringleader was Alan Moore. And he said that he became deranged. So I don't know what all they did. I mean, he talks about this in his book, um, Who Killed Mr. Moonlight, Bauhaus, Black, or it was like Black Magic, Bauhaus, and Benediction. And in, whatever order that came. And so that's a kind of a dark benediction, right? Where we are the recipients of the dark magic of Bauhaus. Now, when I was looking around to get some people involved with the Burroughs Tribute Anthology, the first person I thought to ask was David, because I thought, well, who better than a self-described Burroughs obsessionist, right? Burroughs, that's not a word. A Burroughs obsessive. David J. Haskins is a self-described Burroughs obsessive. I thought, well, what do I have to lose? If anything, I'll never hear from him. But so I'm doing a Zoom. So he yeah, so he wrote back um a few days later, and he said, something like, will this do? And it was an original poem called El Hombre Invisible, and it's about the accidental shooting death of Joan Volmar Burroughs in Mexico City, and a very, very tragic accident that sort of made a deep impression in Burroughs' life, and he spent the rest of his life trying to discover what was the source of this bizarre accident, or was it? He described it to something he called the ugly spirit. And so David wrote this poem, which has a lot of Easter eggs of Bela Lugosi's Dead. And he also said, "Oh yes," and because I'm also doing a David Bowie tribute, he said, "Oh yes, you can use the lyrics to this song called "The Day That David Bowie Died" in your David Bowie anthology." So it's like, oh, blessings, blessings. Thank you, thank you. Um, so really, really grateful to David J. Haskins. And I've always been a Bauhaus fan ever since I was a kid. And really, I thought, well, this is a natural, and nobody's getting any younger. And who still all the members are still alive, and Peter Murphy hasn't like you know gotten himself killed in a bizarre you know drug drug fueled accident, gardening accident or whatever. I mean, he's still around. I don't mean to make fun of Peter Murphy, but you know, he did have that. He's had some run-ins with the law, and so it is what it is, right? But they they were last seen together, Bauhaus in 2022, and I forget exactly what happened. I think they had to cancel the tour, and I'm not sure what happened, if it was some shenanigans or not. So I thought, well, I'm doing this ultimate William S. Burroughs tribute, and why don't I ask? A lot of the same people that I've known consistently for years, if they would also like to be part um, of a Bauhaus tribute anthology, and it's the connections. There's so many. There's basically the Venn diagram of Bauhaus fans and Burroughs fans is a perfect circle because Bauhaus is basically a beat poetry band. I mean, if you listen to songs like Kick in the Eye, it's all about eyeball kicks. In other words, Jack Kerouac, right? Looking or searching for Satori, a kick in the eye, kick in the eye, right? That's that's Jack Kerouac. And so people, I think one of the beautiful things about Bauhaus is that you can listen to their songs and every song is unique. And there a lot of people think, oh, Bela Lugosi's dead. It's goth. It's not goth. It's funk. It's it's jazz. It's poetry. It's kind of organic theater. It's surrealism. It's Antonin Artaud. It's exquisite corpse. It's Dada, and it's performance art, right? Um, and their performances are also very, very calculated and theatrical. I mean, the whole like sexual tension between I'm sorry, but Rocky, right? I see you shiver with anticipation. Um, see, a lot of the same people who were Bauhaus fans that I knew in Sacramento were also in the Rocky Horror cast in here at the Crest Theater and into huge into David Bowie and Sting and people like that. So, that's like the smart kids, but also the misfit kids who didn't get along with anybody. Some of them were assholes, but some of them also went on to do amazing things. And so, long story short, so I'm trying to explain how this book came about. And so, I started casting around, and I was like, who do I get? Well, John Shirley. John Shirley is actually a fan of mine. John Shirley wrote like Alex S. Johnson's The Baudelaire of Our Time, which just, okay, well, thank you. I mean, it, Baudelaire is pretty groovy, right? Baudelaire was the guy, was the man, and was the man who created modern poetry, according to T.S. Eliot. And so I'm just profoundly grateful to John Shirley, and then Ellen Mabey, of course, um, who does who's appeared a lot in Don Kingfisher Campbell's um, chapbooks and on our the Saturday afternoon poetry stuff that he does. So shout out to Don, and so it just sort of snowballed, and then and I have like I cast around. I asked Caitlin R. Kiernan for a story. They gave me a deep cut. I asked John Palisano, who's a Bram Stoker award-winning author and screenwriter for Ridley Scott. I've known forever, and I asked him for a story. He gave me an original story. Most of the pieces in this book are originals, which makes it unique among anthologies because for people who don't know or aren't familiar with publishing or aren't familiar with like the anthology genre, it's usually you have most of the stories have already been published elsewhere, and you have a
Mhm.
handful. So, for instance, for like horror anthologies, you have maybe a handful of, unless you're David J. Scow or Craig Spector or Peter Straub, the late great Peter Straub, or people like that, or Stephen King, you're kind of going to, or Ramsey Campbell, you're kind of going to get mostly um, you're going to be crowdfunding it, and then you'll get mostly um, reprints and a few original stories by people nobody's ever heard of.
Mhm.
And then you pay through the year, you have to crowdfund to get Stephen King, a reprint from Stephen King. Now, the difference between me and them is I don't have any money. I'm not a professional. I can't afford to pay people. So I pay people an honorarium. You know, I will offer an honorarium, and it's just a pittance, but it's out of respect. And, but, you know, I pay, I pay everybody the same amount. And most of my horror the horror people in my anthologies are like Bram Stoker award-winning authors. You know, Caitlin R. Kiernan, who won the World Fantasy Award 2 times and won the Bram Stoker Award twice and was a finalist for the Nebula. And so I think it's a new model of publishing where, we're not professionals. We don't give a shit about money. We're interested in beauty and and compassion and warmth and empathy and like
Mhm.
you know right, right, fuzzy.
Yes. Mine sounds like chocolate also, by the way,
Aw.
just so you know.
Mm. And
I
so
got it. It's fun because I got it at group therapy. We did
nice.
a Christmas, like a Secret Santa thing.
Uh-huh.
And so this bear was one of the things that, well,
Oh,
actually, my husband got it.
oh,
Um,
that's
but it
beautiful.
smells like chocolate.
Oh, that's great. I wish I had a bear that smelled. No, you know what? I'm not envious of your bear because this is a stiff teddy bear.
Yes.
It's a stiff, man. It's like the Rolls Royce of teddy bears.
Yes.
Beautiful thing, you know. So, okay, so I want to talk about we didn't talk about Madonna for because I would love a Madonna poem from you. I'm really feel very strongly about my book like a tribute, a literary homage to Madonna. And really, and you could submit more than one piece. I mean, people could submit a whole bunch of stuff and I'll publish it. You know who I have in that book? Our friend Lasara Firefox Allen, who wrote Sexy Witch and the upcoming, shout out to Lasara, the forthcoming Genderqueer Menopause, which I blurbed. Lasara Firefox Allen, a beautiful human being. I just realized that we are the worst nightmare of the Trump administration,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
For so many reasons.
I love it. I love being the nightmare.
I mean, it's like I'm positive that we're on some sort of enemies list somewhere, you know? Like we can't not be, right?
Hmm.
And every single one of our authors is, you know, is transgressive, off the beaten path, transgender, queer in some fashion, or just beautifully mangled, you know, neurodivergent, disabled. We're everything that they despise and at the same time secretly envy. Um, this is just this is a book by Poppy called Plastic Jesus, and it reimagines the Beatles as if like as a gay, as a gay couple. Like if Lennon and McCartney were a gay couple, why wouldn't they have been? Why wouldn't they have been?
Hmm.
Okay. So I think that Billy Martin just writes what we want to see. He's like a it's like the head canon for all of us, right?
Hmm.
A head canon for all of us. Or is that the term? I don't even know because I'm old, man. Head
It's
canon?
it sounds good.
Yeah,
Even
it
if it's
sounds good.
not, it sounds good. And
Yes.
it's yeah.
I envy, well, Exquisite Corpse, the novel Exquisite Corpse. Um, that's from a Bauhaus song.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he just turned in the forward to the book. So we're going to be seeing, and this is, Poppy, um
I like that
with,
picture.
King Juan Carlos Ferguson won.
The kitty.
The kitty. Critter.
Uh, Here's my kitty, or one of them.
A beautiful kitty.
Yes, he's a spoiled little brat.
Oh, hey, you know what? Speaking of animals, we had a Lahore pigeon adopt us for a while there. The Lahore pigeons, they're odd looking, freaky looking birds.
Yes.
And they've got um feathers on their talons, right? They look
Yeah.
weird, but beautiful. Beautifully weird. And this
Hmm.
bird was kind of an asshole, but so magnificent. And I'm just like, man, you're a bird with an attitude. It was like the Madonna of birds, just like walks in like it's royalty and doesn't want to be touched and demanding food, and then it disappears and it comes back. And a lot like a very, very cat-like, very cat-like personality.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what their connection with, but they're from ancient Persia. Yeah, so this was Carbon 14 magazine. These interviews kind of regularly devolve into me showing and telling, but I think it's interesting. This poetic gore is an interview with the then Poppy Z Brite, and the photographs by Jeff Potter, and who did the cover for A Midian by Cradle of Filth, and Alone with the Horrors by Ramsey Campbell. And this is a pretty awesome old zine. Like I was in sort of like part of the zine revolution of the 90s, and I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize, but
No, it's okay.
it's really awesome too. So just in no particular order. So I was talking about Carrie Crum. Now, this movie is a lie. I mean, it just does not depict the truth at all. It does, however, have have some great songs that she wrote. And so if you like music, you'll like the soundtrack. And Dakota and Kristen Stewart. How can you go wrong? It's Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart, and they have this awesome lesbian sex scene to to the sounds of Iggy Pop. I want to be your dog. How much more brilliant can you get, right? So watch it
Yes.
for the eye candy and the music, and it's not reliable.
What movie is reliable anymore?
What is, right? We
Yeah.
have Wicked Candy, my it's a I guess it's a chat book that I put out. When did it was put out by Morbid Books in was it 2014 or so? Um, it has a preface by Terry M. West, who is the director of the cult classic Flesh for the Beast with starring Caroline Munro. And he also did a lot of stuff for Alternative Cinema magazine, which I did too. And he directed some films like um, they did a lot of softcore porn. Okay, so I'm not being monetized, and I don't. Very very few people watch my videos, so you know it doesn't matter. And if somebody, you know, like just reports it, then I'll just put it up again. You know. So this is what Terry M. West said about this book. It says, "Oh, preface. Oh, that's zero. I thought it was an O, you know. Now, normally when I preface something is not a good thing. It usually entails me holding my hands up defensively and trying to explain a situation before someone walks in on one hell of a mess that I'm somehow responsible for. Many times have I said to my wife, now let me preface this by saying, to try and cushion a blow of some type. That is not the case here, but in a way that is totally the case here. So when I was asked to preface Wicked Candy for Alex S. Johnson, the first thing I did was look up the definition of the word preface. A preface is usually an opportunity for an author to explain or apologize for the work that lurks and pulls on the chains behind his words. Apologize? Fuck that. If you have never read the work of Alex S. Johnson, then I will apologize for the time it took you to discover this talented and bizarre wordsmith. Alex lives in his own world, plays by his own rules, and mixes genres like a demented chemist. The tales collected here would fail miserably in lesser hands, but with Alex, you get stories that could have come from a childbearing orgy between Hunter S. Thompson, Mel Brooks, and Stephen King, while Nietzsche and Freud looked on and whacked off to the proceedings. Okay, so I'll apologize for that bit of imagery. No one deserves that in their heads. When when I make a reader laugh, it is as satisfying to me as making them gasp. Alex can pull either from you many times in a single paragraph. He boldly commits to the lunacy, and it pays off. One thing I can't tell you about Alex is what goes on in that brilliant but tortured and I'm sure highly colored mind of his, because this is a place I would never explore on my own. That is one rainbow I have no desire to chase. I trust Alex to responsibly deliver his madness to the paper. I do not need to see the machine behind it. The man is a mad and genre-defying genius. If you like to laugh, shiver, gag, and you can appreciate the calculated and dark artistry of a man who is clearly insane in all of the right ways, you should tangle with this collection. After all, what tastes better than candy? Wicked candy, baby. Terry West. Um, and so that's one of my favorite blurbs. In the cover blurb, bizarro horror laced with black humor. Wicked Candy is shocking, perverse, and at times funny as hell. Lucy Taylor, Queen of Erotic Horror. And she won the Bram Stoker Award for The Safety of Unknown Cities. Um, so that was Lucy Taylor. Um, who's the fact that Lucy Taylor has written some of the most shocking and perverse stuff ever written and ever public that's ever seen print thinks my stuff is extreme. I don't know, but it's not about me. It's about my having created a platform for other people. And so people like John Shirley, Ellen Mabey, you know, um, you know, Billy Martin, Caitlin Kiernan, and have endorsed my work, allowing me to publish things that and people will take me seriously. And after a
Mhm.
while, you know, my books last year, two of my books got into the Widener Library at Harvard University, which also houses things like the um, the first folios of William Shakespeare. And so I tend to give myself hell and be my worst critic. But you know what? Fuck that, because I'm in the library that houses the first folios of William Shakespeare and one of 38 known pristine copies of the Gutenberg Bible. So my critics can fuck off. And you know, you know who I just got on board um, my Motorhead tribute anthology? Brian Keene. I mean, Brian Keene is the guy who co-edited the book The End of the World as We Know It, New Tales of Stephen King's The Stand, and with an introduction by none other than Stephen King, and a story by Poppy Z. Brite, which brings us to back to where we were. So yeah, so it's a platform. I designed Nocturnicorn Books to be a platform for to promote, you know, it's a community as a community. It's a community that can do charitable works, that can do artistic works, that can experiment with any form without feeling like that I'm not going to take them seriously. I'm not going to publish them. I'm a radical in the sense that I will publish you if you do some good stuff that I find interesting. And if it's good, I'll publish you. I'll find a way to publish you, whether it's a solo connection collection or I will publish your stuff, with other people. And so it's such an attractive proposition. I don't know why more, I mean, well, I have really the biggest for independent authors. I mean, for independent, indie publishers, I have an unprecedented um, kind of author base, like more than 100 authors, and many of these are among the most esteemed creative forces alive. I mean, and it just blows my mind. David J. Haskins, the man who formed Bauhaus and wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead. So what I found is that the people at the very, very top are often very interested in other creatives. They're very generous with their time. They're very helpful with their time, and they look out. It may be a little difficult to get in touch with people like Stephen King, but he looks out for up and coming authors. And he's always on Twitter promoting people. So this is one thing, great thing about people like Steve King is that he will, yes, I'm kissing his ass because I want him to be in my books, but Stephen King, you know, manifest, manifest.
Yes.
But yes, so I don't see why he wouldn't be. Um, and oh yeah, so I create these platforms, and you know who I'm going to have on the show this year? Um, Well, two people, actually three people, but two of them are from the band Black Sabbath.
Oh, that's
One of
awesome.
them is a guy named Tony Martin, who was the singer for the what people who don't follow Sabbath, like they might think it's Ozzy, or then they think it's Ronnie James Dio, or they think it was what Ian Gillan stepped in for one album. But what they don't maybe know is that Tony Martin is the main guy in Black Sabbath. Is the main front man, and he can sing all the Ozzy songs. He can sing all the Ian Gillan songs. And he can sing the Dio songs. He also does a hell of a good job writing his own songs. And
Hmm.
so he's the guy, and he's also his solo work is amazing. Um, and he's of course I don't need to kiss his ass because I'm a legend, right? I don't need to kiss anybody's ass. This is the beautiful thing about power and clout is you don't have to be you don't ha- you know well, first of all, if you grow a spine, you never need to worry about anything, and you will gravitate people to you because everybody loves so like a vertebrae is you can hang things on it and it will
Hmm.
not budge. And that's just a fact of existence. And it's also becomes like a magnet. The most powerful magnet is the one that attracts um, the like. And I am an advocate of the law of attraction. It absolutely works, you know. So the secret, that famous you know, film and book series, that's a load of crap because that's just selfishness, rebranded. What the secret actually is empathy. That is the true law of compassion. Maybe
Hmm.
the true law of attraction is compassion, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but I just had to say that. But I want to talk about Madonna. So I'm going to shut up because I want your thoughts, John Compton, on Madonna and
Oh
what
my
you think about
Lord.
it, right?
Um, it was like she was my idol when I was younger.
Okay,
And it was quite humorous because I would listen to her, but I wouldn't exactly know exactly what she was exactly talking about.
right.
So I'd be in, middle school and talking about
He's like a
Madonna.
gateway drug.
Yeah, and the teachers would be looking at me funny. Prince was also
Yeah.
another one too. And but they'd be looking at me all funny because I was had an obsession with Madonna. Um but yeah, she's been around longer than I've been alive. But yeah, like um
I
and
like it.
and and
I like the way you talk.
uh-huh. But she's like incredible because it's like she didn't give two fucks about nothing, and that's how I want to be. I don't want to give two fucks about nothing. I wanna I wanna write how I write. And if you don't like it, then you can go on your merry way. I tell people all the time. So like a compassion. And I know I'm sorry I'm talking about everything, but it's just like the thought revolves. And so I'm a very compassionate person. I'm very empathetic and I'm very promotional. And I try to, like, my thing is the bigger, the more famous, the bigger someone gets, the bigger your stage gets, and the more people you can bring on it, and the more people you can, like, highlight. Um, but at the same time, if you cross me, I'm an asshole and I don't care. And and so I tell people all the time, there is a block button. You can block me. It's okay. I'm gonna go to sleep tonight.
I will actually request people to block me.
Uh-huh. It's like there's the block button. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to comment and we don't have to argue.
We
But
don't have to be
sometimes
friends, right?
yeah, sometimes I'll get bored. Like, and then depends on what day it is. So, and the block button is my best friend too, because I'll
Okay,
block someone in a heartbeat.
okay.
But depending on what day it is, sometimes I'll be bored and I'll want to argue back. I'll just have a wild hair, and so I'll spend time to argue with people.
Did you say
'Cause
you
I
have a
don't care.
wild hair in?
Yeah, I have a wild hair, and I just be arguing with
Is
people,
that
and people
okay?
are
So
like,
is that as in a hair like on your head, or is that like a heron, like a bird, like a wild heron?
probably both. It
Okay.
could be both. Um, cause, cause, cause I be crazy and be soaring. And people are like, "Why are you
As in
arguing?"
as
I'm
in
like,
Lord Sauron, right? From like
"Yeah, yeah."
we're crazy and Sauron.
Uh-huh. Cause I'm like, and people be like, why are you arguing?" It's like, cause it's fun.
It's
Because
fun.
it doesn't bother me any. Like
Yeah.
today I have an essay that was published and
Oh,
someone
congratulations. What
Thank you.
on? What is the
Oh,
topic?
it talks shit about the poetry community and the
Oh,
industry. Oh yeah.
oh,
And
oh,
it
oh,
talks shit
oh,
about
oh.
the industry
Yes,
because
I want to read
it's
this. Can you send it to
capitalism.
me? Can you send it to
Yes,
me, please?
it's oh yeah, of course. And
Okay.
it's capitalism. Like the poetry world has turned capitalism and it's like high school and it's like the
You
little
were talking
cliques.
about like the Rupa, whatever her name is, Rupa,
Oh,
Rupa Dupa,
Rupee
Rupa,
Car.
Rupa
God,
Dupa,
Lord.
Rupa,
Yeah, Rupee
Rupee.
Car. Or
Rupee isn't, right?
uh-huh.
Rupees,
God,
right?
she's a horrible poet. She's a fraud. She's a plagiarist too.
Yes, I know.
But
She's a plagiarist of like this black poet, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and it come out and no one seems to care. Oh, it's Rupee. Oh,
yeah,
but so it talks about shit about my essay goes against the poetry community because it's like high school and the and you work really hard and there's all this stuff but no one gets it except for the little groups and the little names and it's like that
yeah,
and the poetry world doesn't like the indie and the small is amazing and I
yeah,
support them and but like like to get an award you got to be they just publicly it's just names and it's not poems so I just talk shit about them because it's fun and people publish it and
yeah.
so so I forgot
Yeah,
where I was going with this. But
it's all good.
but
Madonna.
yeah, so that's today. So oh yeah, and I argue with people because I don't care because at the end of the day, I'm laughing about it. Like with the essay, someone commented and said something I said in there was bullshit. And I was just like, well, and they had an example, and so I wrote back, and I was like, well, your example's bullshit. Um, like like but I don't care because I have a reputation and people know me and I'm very nice and and I support people and I do my everything in the world to bring up voices and bring up poetry and
Right.
stuff so I don't care like people let's see and I don't care to be public about saying I don't like something or talking shit about
Yeah.
someone, arguing because I have a reputation and people know that I'm amazing and I'm full of love. But once you cross me, it's over with. Um,
Well, it is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I that's one of the reasons that I'm very outspoken and I have a lot of people who hate me, um but also I think I speak for a lot of people who are listening to me and like, yeah, man, I don't dare say that, but yeah, what Alex said.
mhm. Yeah, there's 7 billion people in the world.
Exactly.
If 1,000 of them hate me, whoop-de-doo-dah. For every one
Exactly.
person hate me, 10 people love me.
Exactly. Me too. Me too. And I always think that's why I'm obsessed with that song, If You Seek Amy. Right.
hmm
I mean, it's really true. And I think Britney is such a powerful goddess.
hmm
I'm doing this goddess anthology. And I've got like Patrick Khalifi in there. I've got Poppy Z. Brite in there. I've got Ellen Mabey in there. We've got Alexis Roan Fancher in there and Mark Olmsted in there. I would love to have you in there. And the Madonna tribute is a kind of an outgrowth of that book. And so so let's talk some Madge. I mean, we haven't really chewed into it because you got sort of on a detoured, but
I know. That's me.
you know,
My brain is fucked up, and I think of one thing, and it turns into another, and I just go everywhere. But yeah.
well, let's talk about Madge. So wh when did you first start to hear about Madonna?
I
Like,
was young. I
yeah,
don't quite exactly remember, but I was young. I was in like elementary school and middle
yeah.
school.
What was the first song that you heard you were like, yeah,
Oh,
damn,
like a virgin.
like a virgin, like
Like
a
a virgin.
virgin. Did you ever see that movie, Reservoir Dogs?
I believe it's been a bit, but
Yeah, I was
I know
just
about it.
watching it. So it starts out where these tough guys like Steve Buscemi and Harvey Keitel and was it not Samuel L. Jackson, but Lawrence Tierney, and they're all t these hardened gangster guys, and they're all talking about Madonna, and they're arguing about Madonna. I think it's hilarious. I think it's genius, you know.
Hmm.
And so like, wow, Madonna. So like a Virgin is like so many of her songs, it's ironic. I mean, it
Hmm.
has levels. Like if you listen to it, like Material Girl, if you listen to it the first time, and we were talking about how like our personas are so different from who we actually are. Like I write this stuff that's hardcore, transgressive, violent, erotic, dark, and I certainly find some of these things appealing in a very consensual way, but I'm a small bear. I mean, I'm a small bear,
Hmm.
right? Small
Oh,
bear.
there.
Okay. And it's not a gay bear thing. People will think automatically, oh, he's a small bear. He's a small gay bear. He's not a small gay bear. It's literally the origin story of this, the Small Bear Show is just like,
May I ask a question real
yes.
fast? Two. Do you edit this?
Um, mm,
It's okay if you
um,
don't. I have to go pee.
oh well, okay, so I
So
will just be
I was,
I can
hi everyone, I
pause.
have to go pee.
I can pause and then we'll proceed. Okay, so we're back. So yeah, so we're just it's just really really amazing what we've been able to accomplish with Nocturnicorn Books just in a decade and building it up from nothing to something that is attracted a lot of people. A lot of authors feel that they can have a platform with Nocturnicorn Books that is a lot more flexible than if they were working with like a professional company that knew what they were doing. You know, there's a huge difference between working with somebody who's has like a business model that's all about maximizing profits and whatever and a business model that's based on kind of empathy and being out for looking out for the little guy. So that is what I aspire to. Um, you know, I think if you have strong skills as a creative person, and I was just talking to my viewers about my whole philosophy, um, was that I think that it's more important to have empathy than to make money. And in the long
Yes.
run, by following this exact counterintuitive principle, which people probably thought I was crazy, you know, for a long, long, long time. And I still don't have any money, right? We don't make a dime from our books. So literally, like my books will make like I'll make like $100 in a year. Um,
Mm.
that's not, but it's you know having the big picture and the having have foresight can lead to things that you would never achieve if you just followed the prevailing normative logic. So
Hmm.
so I created this company with the sole purpose and intention of publishing brilliant stuff. And we published a lot of really, really good stuff in collaboration with our friends in Caen, France, who also publish Nocturnicorn books. Shout out to Dean M. Drinkle, and our friends in the Fear magazine is a we did one anthology called Fear presents 12 Dark Days, One Hell of a Christmas, which was a co-production, international co-production. And it sounds really fancy schmancy, like it's a co-production between me and, Dean M. Drinkle in Cannes, but it's just two guys, you know. We're just two guys. So I was just like looking at something Barry Hoffman. Barry Hoffman is the guy who he publishes Clive Barker. He also publishes, talk about a gay man who was a friend of you know, of Allen Ginsberg and credits William S. Burroughs as a huge inspiration to Clive Barker, right? Um, this special signed edition of Firefly Burning Bright is limited to 350 numbered copies. And this is by Barry Hoffman, right? Gauntlet Publications, 1996. So they're the same people who published, I think, what was it? The book Are You Loathsome Tonight? I just showed you.
Mhm.
Now, these are some of so this is an original chapbook from 1996. So this is some of the people who had praise for 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 Barry Hoffman's work. Robert Bloch, a very powerful piece for work. Barry Hoffman brings you just as close to a serial killer as you'd ever dare to be. Hungry Eyes puts a new face on horror. Robert Bloch, author of Psycho, obviously. Hungry Eyes is a fast-reading, complex, fascinating debut. Barry Hoffman's characters come to life on the page and resonate long after the intricate story is done. Poppy Z. Brite. Some other people like Hungry Eyes is mean and lean. It's my favorite type of novel. Very dark, very creepy, very suspenseful, but also intelligent and thoughtful. Richard T. Chismar, Cemetery Dance. So our last book, Sam, speaking of Cemetery Dance, our last book that I published through Nocturnicorn Books was called Thunderstruck, a dark poetry
I
collection.
like that.
Thank you. That the cover art is by our friend in Providence, Rhode Island, Sandy De Luca. The cover design is by Adrian Baldwin, who does all of our covers and layouts and formatting and
Mhm.
graphics, including the Bauhaus book. This got a rave review in Cemetery Dance. They said basically, like, if you have a library of horror poetry, you're going to want to need to get on board with some Thunderstruck. Now, so people who say, oh, people say I'm crazy, you know, but then again, they don't have rave reviews in Cemetery Dance magazine. Their books are not collected at Harvard University. They don't rule. They don't have people like John Shirley saying that they're the modern Baudelaire. And it's all the same person. Why? Why? Is it because I'm that good? Oh, hells yeah, I'm that good. But the most important thing is that I had people who who gave me a boost because they could. I think, right, you're at the top of the ladder, you're at the top of the roof, you're on like Mount Olympus, you're in wherever, whatever metaphor you like, you reach down, somebody's struggling, right? Somebody's struggling. You know, they're 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 barely gripping the ladder. And and they're so full of passion for what they do, but they doubt themselves because people say they're dumb, stupid, unintelligent, they can't write, they don't make any sense, they're incoherent, blah 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 blah, whatever. They're on drugs, blah 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 blah. That could be true. Um, but then, somebody like John Shirley or Ellen Mabey or Richard Modiano or other people like that, have reached down and pulled me up and said, "Hey, Alex, you got it. What it takes, man. You could be an art company, and that's righteous, right? That's very, 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 very righteous." So, but that is not about Madonna. We keep getting. Why is it that we can't hew to the Madonna course?
Because it opens up all kinds Madonna opens up all kinds of other doors because she's a rebel and she didn't give a fuck, and so that makes us think of other things, and so she leads the way into everything
You
else.
know, that song, music, something
Makes
something
the
blues
people
makes the bourgeoisie and the rebel. Damn it, damn it, you know. And I love who's the guy that the comedian Sacha Baron Cohen. You ever
Oh,
seen
he's
this bit?
crazy. Yeah.
Right,
He
what he rolls up in his cab and he's like, and she leans in. And he's like, your Babylons look smaller than they do on TV, but I definitely would. You wish. I do actually. And she hands him the CD. It's music. He puts it in. And I love that French
he's like,
electro pop um snap. You know,
hmm
she does that in a lot of her best songs, like American Life. But you know what? She's a dancer and she could be in a ballet company. She's so good. And
hmm
her body is so taut and
hmm
intelligently trained. I've never seen anybody, well, I mean, we could talk about Christina, right? We could talk about Britney, but my goodness, some Madge. Okay, so what can she not do? Is there anything that she cannot do?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Is there any
I'm
form
thinking.
that she's not tried? I mean, she could do any kind of song. Ray of Light. Interesting thing about Ray of Light is that it was directed by a guy named Jonas Ackerlund, who was original member of the Swedish black metal band called Bathory, which is named after the 16th century blood countess Elizabeth Bathory. Also, he's also directed such things as the film Lords of Chaos about the black metal murders in Norway in the early 90s, and the video of Telephone with Gaga and Beyonce, and
Mm,
a video for Ozzy for It Gets Me Through, and a video for the Norwegian black metal band Satyricon, which cross-references the Ozzy video. So it's kind of like it's really interesting if people look up Jonas Ackerlund. He works for Ridley Scott um, Associates. So, which is another interesting connection with I have two really interesting connections with Ridley Scott, because actually there's more connections, because if you think about it, his brother was Tony Scott, who made Top Gun, but he also made a little movie called The Hunger, right? Which was based on the book of the same name by Whitley Strieber, who also wrote Communion, which was inspired William S. Burroughs to want to get in touch with aliens. And
oh
there's all these
wow.
interesting connections. And that was a cat tail. It's a
No,
fascinating little cat tail.
it
Yeah.
was the tell and you seen in my screen.
Yeah.
Come here, Kilo. It is. Ah, my doggy
It's a
Kilo.
doggy.
Uh-huh.
It's
My pit bull.
doggo.
He's a big baby. He was sleeping and he woke up and he started pushing into me, and that's why you see me like falling over.
This is a very picture of a good boy.
We have th 4 dogs, 3 cats, and 17 mice.
Nice.
Yes.
A
Hello, if you
good boy.
heard snoring,
Hello.
that was me.
Nice to meet you. I'm Alex. Yeah. Yeah.
That's Josh. He woke up.
Yeah. I'm AKA small bear, but it's not a gay bear.
Uh-huh. Show him, show him. I know we're in an interview, but he
Yeah.
was
It's
sleeping.
it's all good.
He was sleeping. Look at, I love that bear.
That's a
Josh
stiff
has,
bear.
Josh collects stuffed animals, so
Because
he has, I think we have about 50 stuffed animals.
this is a really fascinating origin story. Okay,
Oh,
so
yes.
when I was born, oh my gosh. I was
Another one.
born Halloween Day, 1966, the same day and year as Nelson Gary, who's also in the book. Now, um, and I'm also publishing two of his novels this year. Shout out to
Nice.
Nelson Gary. Um, so when I was born, Halloween Day, 1966, but see, my mom had a friend, two friends who were a married couple. The guy was John Cordy, the one was Beulah Chang. John Cordy was the director of such films as Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure for George Lucas. He was also the guy who came up with the mobile film studio concept, which became ultimately American Zoetrope, which produced such films as Bram Stoker's Dracula and Apocalypse Now and Koyaanisqatsi. And also the film Twice Upon a Time, for which came out the same year as Return of the Jedi, which featured one of my authors, Tim Dry, who's in two of my anthologies, and he was one half of the duo electronica duo Tick and Talk, and he trained with the guy Lindsay Camp the who trained David Bowie and Kate Bush in
Cool.
Mine, right? So Tim Dry, he's in England. So he played this this a henchman of Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi. So the same year as Return of the Jedi came out, John Cordy made um, this film Twice Upon a Time. Now the DP for Twice Upon a Time was David Fincher, right? David Fincher, as in Seven, as in Gone Girl, as in Zodiac, as in The Social Network, as you know, David. But that was his first movie that he was involved with. And also, my dad, who's 86 years old, he's still around, and he was an amazing guy. He was when he grew up, he was friends with, and until his death, Michael Ritchie. Michael Ritchie, the I guess who's best known to most people who watch movies as the guy who made the film The Bad News Bears.
Mm.
So, as in, that would be bad news bears for you, Walter Matthau, right? So that is the origin story of the Smol Bear Show, right? I was sent a When I was born, I was sent a stiff teddy bear, much like this one, by the guy who directed um, Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure, which was from a story by George Lucas for Lucasfilms, um, and from based on the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? And then so you have the bear stuff going on there, and it's a pretty damn good origin story,
Uh-huh. Yes, it is.
as stories go, right? It's all true. So, um, so Madonna, do music
Makes me,
makes the
is
booty
it music makes me
cry?
lose control?
Yeah,
Or music makes the people lose control or
makes the
something like
people.
that.
Yeah, music, and then like um, I want to. I can. It's me against the music. I want to get into the zone. Want to get into. I can't. I can't. I can't do that. Was it? I want to get in the zone, or I want to. I want to get in the zone.
I'm sorry, I thought of something funny when you said that.
Yeah, go
You
for it.
said that, and the what popped in my head was you said I want to get in the zone, and I thought auto zone.
AutoZone?
AutoZone, you know the car place AutoZone.
Oh, I don't know that.
That just popped in my head, and I was like,
Oh
what
my
the hell?
gosh. No, I don't
Oh,
know about that.
And also, this is not Madonna, Gaga, and
Yes,
we were
we
talking about
can
that
talk about
song.
Gaga.
And one of my favorite songs by Gaga is "Applause."
Okay, I have to
Because
look
we're
that up.
talking about
Applause.
make people lose control, music, and then
Come
Gaga
on,
popped in
baby.
my head. I do it for the applause. I do it for
Yeah.
the applause.
Well, I
Yeah.
just I just think like, come on, Britney, lose control, right? Do do
Uh-huh.
do do do. And then the songs they all sort of like I've got a mega mix going on in my head,
Uh-huh.
like music makes the bourgeoisie and the do 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 do, and but then you go into telephone, like right, like a telephone, right? Um, hello, hello, hello. How's that go?
I
Hello, 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 do 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 do. I'm
have no clue.
dancing, right?
It's been forever since I heard that song. But I like the video of it because it's like a movie.
It is like a movie. It's
They
like
did
a Quentin
what's that
Tarantino
movie?
movie.
What what's that movie? It makes me think of with was it Susan Sarandon and
Yeah,
were they
Thelma and
Thelma and
Louise
Louise? It makes me think of Thelma and Louise.
by Ridley Scott, who, and it's not a coincidence because Jonas works for Ridley Scott.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of like a little
A circle. It's
nod
a
to it's a
circle.
circle. It's a wheel within a wheel. It's like a
Yes.
magical device that, you know, it's very stimulating. You know,
Hmm.
okay, so you want to talk about some Tim Curry. It's stimulating. You know that song, I Do the Rock,
I don't know.
I Do the Rock. We used to play it with Rocky Horror a lot. I Do the Rock. It's stimulating.
Hmm.
Is there anything that Tim Curry has done that's not magical and delicious?
Well, you've referenced. I'm gonna say no. There's nothing he's done that's not delicious or magical.
Like he was even in The Worst Witch, right? He was delicious and magical in The Worst Witch, and then he was delicious and magical in the Muppet Parrot movie, and then he was magical and delicious in even things that are not magical and delicious. The remake of Rocky Horror was not magical and delicious.
They did a remake.
Yeah, for Fox of all people, did Fox did it, and they completely like ruined it.
Hmm. They most 90% of remakes are ruined. They ruined the original. So
Yes. Oh, okay. Here's the thing. We're talking about controversy, having unpopular opinions. There's a lot of now because everybody is so delicate and sensitive.
hmm
There's a lot of I don't know. There was a huge sort of back just a few years ago. There was a lot of you know real tight asses in like particularly like the Reddit community. These like Gen Y people or Gen Z people. Like I don't know where they get off, but it's like you, you know even 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 Rocky was controversial. And it's like, well, that's a bad it's a bad representation for transgender people. And it's like, honey, this is a film. It's fiction. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be he's wicked. Yeah, man. Why would you want a like a neutered Frankenfurter?
Yeah.
Right? What's the point? He's
Yeah.
You love him because he's bad.
Uh-huh.
Not that's so what is it about like this new generation that really they don't get things. They don't get irony, satire, provocation, the fact that this film was intentionally made to shock you,
Hmm.
It's like, and being shocked is so playing into it, and you're in basically being complicit with the actual haters, which is ironic as fuck, right?
Yeah.
So all the cancel culture on the extreme right and the extreme left, basically, they meet in the middle. And I always say that we're all going to be on the same side of the barbed wire fence that's electrified, and the attack dogs are not going to care,
No,
right?
they
Whether we had
definitely
a
aren't.
feud on social media and you blocked me because you thought I was a transphobe or something because I once misgendered somebody once by accident,
Uh-huh.
despite having like, six transgender friends that I work with closely and publish all the time.
Yeah.
It's just like, get over yourselves, right? I have people who blocked me, a year ago, so they have no idea what I'm up to. And I have people who like um hate me for something that I said a decade ago, and they still won't talk to me
I
because
had someone I had
it's like,
someone get mad at me one time and block me because I said I don't like warnings labels for
yeah.
poems. Yeah, so I was like, okay, bye.
Well, okay, what is it about? Okay, so trigger warnings.
Or trigger warnings.
Like,
Yeah, that's what it is.
I don't understand. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, right? So we didn't have trigger warnings. And I remember reading Naked Lunch when I was like 13 years old.
Hmm.
Maybe that might explain a few things about me, but it doesn't I didn't become a terrible person. If anything, the one takeaway I had is like, don't use heroin. It's
Yeah.
bad for you. And
And my
yeah,
thing is too, I don't, when you read poetry or anything, like the shock and awe of it is what you want. I'm not trying to read a paragraph of why this poem may hurt my feelings. The poem's ruined. It's ruined.
right.
There's nothing about it anymore. Poetry is supposed to
Yeah,
punch you
yeah,
in your
yeah.
face.
I,
And
I
if
mean,
you read a paragraph on what might offend you in it, then why am I going to read the poem? I've
I
just
mean,
read the
can you imagine the first readers of Howl if they had a trigger warning? It's like may contain profanity or may contain gay sex or may contain drug use or may contain madness,
Yeah, yeah.
like
The trigger warnings on that. God, might as well not even read it. No fun anymore. There's no fun.
well,
I've like I've been a poetry editor for years now,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and people would send poems in, and there'd be like then and I did it through email, and so the attachments at the bottom, and they do like their trigger warnings, and it'd be like a page, and I'm like, why? What? I've had trigger warnings for spiders. Someone put a trigger warning for spiders one
What?
time. Yeah, and I'm just like, this is
What?
getting ridiculous.
For spiders?
Spiders.
So arachnophobia.
I guess so.
I didn't realize that arachnophobia was so, ubiquitous. I
I
mean,
know.
some
Like
people,
if you, it's, and my thing is, if
I
you
like
need a
spiders
trigger
myself,
warning,
but
if you need a trigger warning for poetry, don't read poetry.
don't read poetry because you're not going to appreciate Shakespeare for one thing. You know,
Uh-huh.
you got a lot of oral play going on in Shakespeare. You got a lot of bawdiness, you got a lot of violence, you got a lot
Uh-huh.
of profanity and adult
Got a
situation
lot of death too.
and a lot of death, a lot of
A
mutilation, a lot of
lot of suicide.
fucking. I mean, if people have watched like the one play which was just like wall to wall violence and depravity, it'll come to me, but
Romeo and Juliet.
that is too. Oh, and you know what? I mean, as a retired English professor, so So talk about some bawdiness, talk about some Madonna. I mean, before Madonna, Shakespeare was Madonna, okay? So he was all like so like for example, just one example, you know, much ado about nothing means whole lot of talk about the coochie. Literally. Whole lot of talk about the pussy. What?
Huh?
Yeah, Shakespeare. Okay,
Shakespeare.
like this, right?
Yeah.
I crack myself up. That's funny. Shakespeare. I love stupid humor. I mean,
Me
the
too.
stupider the better.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the things that really endeared me to Poppy Brite is when he read from Exquisite Corpse for the first time at the World Horror Convention in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1995. And there's a passage in Exquisite Corpse which is incredibly violent and like shocking, transgressive novel. Where he's talking about, he makes a reference to, I'll just say it, bring out your dead. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a Monty Python reference. Just Monty Python in the middle of this shockingly transgressive, you know, the book. Have you read Exquisite Corpse?
No.
It is it's it's a masterpiece and it's also incredibly funny. It's it's
That's always nice.
it's funny in ways that are counterintuitive. And um, when I interviewed Poppy for Death Realm magazine, and I asked, like, I said, you've got some really great jokes in here, and he said, the only people who get those jokes are perverts. And I was like, oh my God, Poppy Z Bright just called me a pervert. I think I'll have that tattooed on me.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah. So one of the things I love about Billy is he's got such a dark and dark wit and it's so, bitchy and like that.
Yeah.
It's like
In your face.
it's in your face and it's like, you know, I love that about him. He's just so it's delicious. I mean, it's just he's he's a true hero of mine. And I think for a lot of people, Billy Martin is just a treasure, and I hope he's writing forever. And I hope he really, if you're listening, Billy, write that novel. Write that novel. Return to writing novels because we all want that. We all want that so much. And oh my gosh. So um, let's see, who else have we not covered? Christina Aguilera. I mean, I think deserves a little mention and a little
Yes. Because she's phenomenal and it's like she's just like swept under the rug.
yeah. Well,
What's
why do
that song? Dirty. Oh,
Dirty.
beautiful. And then her song Beautiful. God, Lord.
Okay.
The one where you're beautiful no matter what and
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Yeah.
that song is just that gets me every time I hear it. It's a good song.
I'm just trying to think because of like future projects because I want to make some more films. And I think one film I definitely want to make is the Goddess movie.
Hmm. And also another singer who I think is brilliant and talented and superb is Miley Cyrus.
Okay, Miley. Okay, so we can talk about Miley, which reminds me, I just yeah, have you ever heard the cover of Jolene? I've been obsessing about the song Jolene by
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah, I've
her
heard.
cover, but also Strawberry Switchblade. You ever heard
I've
Strawberry
not heard that.
Switchblade?
No, I've not heard that cover.
Look it up. It's
Okay.
fantastic. It's this woman, what's her name? She's a Facebook friend of mine. They were this duet duo in the 80s. They had a sort of a string of hits and then they disappeared. They started a kind of a small fashion trend at the time, but Susan McDowell is is the woman in the video, and yeah, she's on. I'm trying to get her into some, and she was in Current 93 as well, and a bunch of other bands like Death in June. A little controversial, but a lot of these things are like Death in June has kind of been described as a fascist band, but I'm not sure about that. Sometimes it just seems like people will label you fascist if they disagree with you or if they don't like you or they don't like your the shape of your nose or your whatever your hair follicles or something. I don't know. Your they don't like your DNA, you know. It's just obsessed with your DNA in terms of not liking it and wanting to cancel it,
Hmm,
right? And
yeah,
what were the witch burnings except, but a mass cancellation.
yeah.
Ultimate cancellation is killing somebody, and then you can cancel an entire group
Population.
by murdering them.
Yeah.
Especially we're talking about this weaponized hatred towards queer people.
Mhm.
So we are the rebel alliance. My idea is that we can create these platforms that empower people who belong to marginalized communities. And if we join together instead of fighting each other on social media like little children, we could have the most awesome collective force imaginable,
Yeah.
right? We could really rise up and terrify them and
Yep.
squash them.
Yep. If we just can get together.
Yeah,
It's very hard. It's very hard lately.
it's
Especially
very hard.
like with my essay, it talks about, how the poetry world works. And my essay is about the underlying message is about equality and hope. And there's people arguing with me. And it's like, why would you argue with me
Where is this
about
published?
Lit Mag News?
Um, can you have the copyright? Do you have
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
what's your arrangement with them?
What do you mean?
Like could I republish it?
I'll ask, probably. I'll ask just to make sure.
Oh yeah, of course. I always ask.
But yeah, it's on the Substack thing, whatever that
Oh yeah.
is.
Oh yeah. So did you sign up for my Substack,
I might have.
the
Did you send
Small
it
Bear
to me?
Review?
I'm a horrible person that is very forgetful.
Oh
Send it to
yeah.
me again.
You're
I think I might
terrible.
send it to me again, and I
Okay.
will. I'm not very big on Substack. I basically just retweet stuff I'm in
Uh, well,
or read.
hey. I almost forgot. Okay, so I'm part of something called Last News on the Left, which was started by my good friend Oceana Teppenhart, and they are the a mega influencer, and I mean by which I mean their first article on Medium had 500,000 hits,
Wow,
500,000 views, and
that's
made
awesome.
$20,000. One article, $20,000.
I made $50.
So I made $0 because I give it away, honey, But I am great. I'm so great. And so anyway, it was my free content that got me on the radar with Oceana. And they approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to work together?" And I was like, "Yup,
Yeah.
you're awesome." And so basically, if you want, I could hook you up with Oceana
Yeah.
and Last News on the Left, and you could have a platform that could potentially reach thousands and thousands of people.
Yes.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
I'm always for hook me up with whatnot.
Yes.
Like I'm
Hook me
always
up
for
with
more
whatnot.
venues to
Which reminds me, thinking of like talking about Madonna as we were going to dress you up in my love, right? All over, right? What does she mean by that?
I have no clue. Well, dress you up in my love could be very sexual too.
I was thinking that. I was thinking
Yeah.
was the beautiful thing about Madonna is that she works on so many levels that you can enjoy like a virgin, like a sturgeon. I'm urging, like, or you could you could just take it at face value, but then it's poetry, and so is Material Girl, and so is music, and so is Ray of Light, and so everything she writes is poetry, and these she creates these personas, and
Mhm.
one of my favorite personas is Bitch I'm Madonna, right? Where she's kind
Yeah.
of playing around with that whole trope of, you know, I'm and then everybody from Chris Rock onwards becomes Madonna and Katy Perry is in that video as well.
Mhm.
And she's got an entire community being Bitch I'm Madonna. And see, that's what I want to do. I want to be the Bitch I'm Madonna of publishing.
Mhm.
That's my logo. That's what I frequently put on my profile picture. And it's so funny because um there were more than one occasion because first because I identified myself as Small Bear, and then second because I identified myself as Bitch I'm Madonna or it's Britney bitch, you know, as my profile, like Rick Lupert, who does this Cobalt poetry thing. And he's also in the
Oh
book.
yeah, I know Rick.
You know Rick, right?
Yeah.
And so he didn't, even though I published him back in the day in my Leonard Cohen tribute called Anthem. Um, he's so um, and we'd been talking, but when I asked for admittance to this Cobalt poetry thing, he didn't want to admit me because I was under, it's Britney bitch. And I was like, look, dude, you know, it's Britney bitch is Alex, and he didn't want to admit me. And then the last time I barely squeaked in there because I'm a small bear. And I think by this time I love Rick to death, but he can be very quite serious
Yeah.
and sort of literal sometimes. And so I was like, okay, so I will always be small bear because that's the brand,
Hmm.
you know, and people who just stick with the brand are going to be making some money very, very soon. How are we going to be making some money? Well, promoting ourselves. So everybody who's associated with Nocturnicorn Books is also potentially, if they like, and it's their choice, nobody's going to force you, put a gun to your head and say, you have to be in this major motion picture. But if you want to be in theaters, if you want to be on streaming, if you want to be on Amazon or whatever, Tubu or whatever, and you want to be in a movie with rock stars, literally, that's your choice. And people who don't want to be in that place, in that position, they're private, or they're shy or whatever, hey, that's great. But for other people who aren't afraid of publicity, who want to be like out there and get exposure and potentially, chill with Madge, I'm not even kidding. They can get on board with Nocturnicorn Books and Vanessa H. Smith Pictures and Darkest Wine Media. So I'm, anybody who's watching this, I don't care who you are, if you're an aspiring writer, an aspiring, whether you're a poet, nonfiction writer, journalist, doesn't matter. Many of us do both. If you're an artist, you know, whatever, you have some sort of talent you want to bring to the table and you want to work with me. I'm a developmental editor, which means I can take anybody and build them up. I was a developmental communications instructor. I have a certification in developmental communications. So I worked with disabled people before, and I am disabled. Um, so that is very, very serious stuff. I'm also want to start doing some workshops so people could sign up for my workshops and then, pay me, you know, X amount of money so that they could work with me and I could mentor them and teach them the ropes and how to do the kind of things that I do so they don't need me anymore. And then they can make some money. And the only thing I can't teach people about, well, I can teach people about social media influencing, and I can teach them about a good business model which combines compassion and capitalism in a way that's attractive on both fronts. I've always thought, that the main downfall of capitalism is too short-sighted
Hmm.
because when you all you're interested in is like these horrible, horrible, horrible ads for AI that come on you're trying to watch a YouTube and it's
Yeah.
AI. It's like basically, you know, if you're a heartless, criminal asshole, who doesn't have any compassion for human beings, and you want machines to do all of your work and basically plagiarize other actual artists and poets
Uh-huh.
and whatever, then you're going to want to use our products. They even
Yeah.
they even kind of encourage children to plagiarize and cheat on their tests. Like this
Yep.
liner, and I will admit that I use liner to generate press releases because it's fast, and I generate some. I have to, you know, generate so many press releases, so I will just let the AI do that. But that's what it's meant to do, I think.
Yeah.
But but they're saying it's like, have you seen these ads where it says, you have 30 seconds on 30 seconds, 30 minutes on an exam. You realize that you don't know what the hell you're doing and you haven't studied. So this is where we come in. We can help you to cheat.
Oh, and then there's that one that's like other people take years to write a book, and we laugh at them because here it'd take you 30 seconds. It's like, oh my Lord, fucking Jesus.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. So like poor Herman Melville, poor, William
yeah,
Faulkner, poor Truman Capote, spent more than 30 seconds.
yeah. And it's like, what kind of people do you want making fun of people who actually write? Like, God, so stupid.
Although it's interesting when I use AI to interact with my own work. So for example, like I will tell, an AI to say, "Hey, write me an Alex S. Johnson story," and it's eerie. I mean, it can actually write exactly in my style, using exactly my key phrases, and it's indistinguishable from something that I've written before because it trains itself on my stuff. you know
Uh-huh.
so I think there's maybe the ethical line would be, well, if you can't plagiarize yourself, and if you're using technology to plagiarize yourself, all that's not a crime. Right? It's like,
Right.
it would be like using a microwave. If using a microwave were a crime, then we would all be like in a federal penitentiary and being sodomized by guys named Butch, and
A bunch, a
Cassidy,
bunch of Bob.
Butch and Bob and Cassidy, Cassidy. Neil Cassidy.
Yeah. It's funny.
And then we'd be on the road in the sense of Chocolate Highway, like we'd be on that road. Sorry, I went there. Well, look who I'm talking to, man. You're a self-described gay poet. What does that mean?
It means I'm a gay poet.
You're a gay poet. So some people like, well, gay has more than one meaning or overtone. Like some people say, oh, that's gay, you know,
Oh yeah. Well,
pejorative or
and I don't think that's loud anymore though. But I
right.
remember when I was younger, yeah, if it was stupid or if like, what are you doing? That's
That's
gay.
gay.
That's gay.
But I think that queerness has basically taken the stuffing out of insults, It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's gay, man. You wish you were
Like,
that
thank
clever.
you.
You wish you were that clever,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because then you could be like Oscar Wilde, you know. And it's basically like it's like you scratch culture, you scratch civilization, you find gay people doing things. Like, the most obvious thing that comes to mind is people like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci. You think, yeah, who painted the Sistine Chapel? A gay guy. Who wrote your favorite book, Exquisite Corpse or Naked Lunch? Or it was a gay guy who wrote the works
That's
of
a gay
James
guy.
Baldwin. Gay black
That's a
man.
gay guy.
Right. Who did
Uh-huh.
who did you made your favorite music? Chances are there was gayness somewhere in there. If it's not Elton
Someone.
John,
Freddie Mercury.
it's Freddie Mercury. Okay, can we talk about Adam, whatever his name is,
Oh yeah, Adam. I know. Lambert.
Lambert, Glambert. Even my dad had a kind of a crush on him.
Hmm.
Glambert.
Yeah, he's very pretty.
He's very pretty.
Very
Did
pretty.
did you ever hear that cover of he did of Ring of Fire,
I
which is
don't know.
what happens when you've eaten some of those like like hardcore Doritos.
No, yeah.
That was actually my friend Carrie Chrome like came up with that joke, and I was like, "Wow, Carrie, man, you're obsessed with burning, burning, like shit and stuff like that." But and Doritos and the fiery Doritos. If people only knew the true story of the Runaways is completely different from anything that you've seen on the screen or any of the documentaries, although she was in the Edge Blade documentary, which comes fairly close. But really, I would love and hope and pray that her true real story gets out there eventually because
Yes.
it's an incredible. I think that she should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the woman who was the girl who came up with the first successful all-girl rock and roll band and paved the way for how many women, you know,
Yeah.
how many bands, I mean, men and women, like how many bands were inspired by the Runaways? They were like one of the first punk rock bands in history, and they came before Bauhaus, right? Before Bauhaus. So the little kid wrote all those songs, kind of like Mozart or Rimbaud or something. Or
Hmm.
so I hope that she's doing okay. I know she was really frazzled by the orangeness.
Bird.
Who thinks that he's going to annex
Greenland. And then
Greenland, which
call
belongs
it
to
red, white, and blue land. God, Lord, fucking
Denmark.
Jesus.
It's belonged to Denmark for 800 years, dude. You can't just take things.
Yeah.
He's like Homer Simpson meets, you know, um,
Peter Griffin.
Peter Griffin meets, you know, Dracula meets like a werewolf meets, you know, P.T. Barnum or something.
Yeah.
Such an absurd little man with the little hands. Got them
Yeah. A
tiny,
little
tiny
hand.
hands.
Who
Tiny
got towed off
hands.
by a toddler?
What?
Who got towed off by a 4-year-old the other day?
Yeah. Do you remember like his first administration where they had the Trump baby balloon, which was like became as iconic as the pig on the cover of Pink Floyd's Animals? That the baby Trump balloon. Whatever happened to that thing? I mean, I think it's due for a relaunch. I would encourage whoever's behind that to redeploy. Well, we've been here for 3.5 hours, so I think I'll wrap it up. So, if you have any, okay, what I want is like if you could read a poem of your choice, and then
All
I'll
right.
read a poem of my choice, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Let's see. What shall I read? Doo, doo, doo. So I will read. Oh, I'll read this one. It's short. Um, it's titled, He Came into My Room for a Reading. I engraved poems in the flesh on his back, cleaned the wounds with alcohol so scars heal legibly. I make his body my manuscript, publish him in my bedroom. And that's that.
That is good. That's a
Thank you.
good, short, but impressive poem. I mean, Ellen Mabey has been doing a lot of haiku recently, and I paid them the usual amount that I pay people for 4 lines in the Bros book, um, because she's that good. Music mix the bourgeoisie and the rev. It's basically I just I enjoy your company and hanging out, but I really want to get back to listening to some Madonna. Is the truth of the matter.
And well, thank you for having fun hanging out with me.
Of course. Um, so I'm going to read a very, very hot poem that was written that I wrote with Sandy DeLuca, and she's been having some health problems. Hope she's doing okay. This is from Thunderstruck, a dark poetry collection published by Nocturnicorn Books in 2024. This one got a rave review from Cemetery Dance Magazine. This one is called Lorith by Sandy DeLuca and Alex S. Johnson. Black lace stockings, long, sleek thighs, rapturous smile blooming with the roses of night. A silver pentagram falls from her neck, her naked breasts, round and firm, pierced with silver rings, beckon all beings. Her alabaster skin aglow, Lorith dances within the circle of vampires, Widdershins steps and curses to sow. Lilting lute, slow drum beat, her locks unruly summon to a living death. Serenade, her beauty. Auburn hair sways. Rose petals drift in the wind, smell of oak leaves and autumn. Come taste the gift of sin. Shadows flicker her sensuous curves. Dark hands caress her, stroke Lorith, and she burns for carnal blessings. The music fades. She lies down within the deadly ring. Dark love driven to the center of her body and soul. The pentagram sings of passions torrid as limbs embrace in a macabre orgy. Blood oozes down her thighs and trickles from her hard nipples. Forked tongues tipple the sweet wine. As the moon descends, they kiss Lorith goodbye. They bury her deep within the moist earth, a black funeral beneath the sodden turf. Yellow leaves drift in the breeze. Morning lifts the curtain of night. Sunlight spreads across her resting place as if applauding her final dance of life. I wait, stir sugar into my cup. All will be well. I nestle by the window in early morning, watch the blackbirds fly over snowy rooftops, blood blooming. The tea is warm. He taps my shoulder, then sits at my feet, peers up with a soulful gaze. My question is always the same. What is it like on the other side? He smiles. White lips curl. Fingers touch my face. Lonely. His voice a whisper, a chant that pierces the heart, his handsome face erased. A tear trickles down his pallid visage, and thus he fades into a greasy hell. Snow swirls, black birds fly. It is lonely in my aching heart and barren the ground where he died. Well, to tell you the absolute transparent truth, I don't really understand this poem, and I wrote it. But, you know, is it that Lorith was a vampire, a shape-shifting vampire, or it's a transgender vampire that's reborn as a cat? Um, or was it always a man? You
I
know,
had fun with the images though. It was very, it had lots of good details and images and
thank
stuff.
you.
Sorry, I laughed. It was just the question came from left field
Yeah,
and it made me chuckle.
it just strikes me because a lot of these poems, not all of them, but a lot of them originated with Sandy, and she just said, "Hey, Alex, could you finish these poems for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I can do that." And so I would add little touches or little a bit of language here and there. But as far as, the inception, that was all Sandy. And then there was some poems that are all me, and then there's some poems that are kind of half and half, and then our friend Aaliyah Celeste Williams in Monroe, Michigan is really, really awesome. She's actually we came up with the Small Bear and Pickle show originally. She's pickle.
That
And
sounds fun.
I don't know why. She's fun. Oh, you know who says fun a lot and I think you would make a good friends. Our friend G.R. Tomini, who's this extremely gay guy who I don't know if he's extremely gay. It's just gay as fuck. I mean, he makes he makes he makes you look straight. Okay. Um and he's um and he's I don't know if I should say it, but he's friends with one of the village people. That's how gay he is, right? And he's also one of the world's leading intellectuals, and his MA thesis was was had forward by Dr. Cornell West,
Oh,
so you know what I mean? So that's pretty amazing stuff, right? So okay, so we've read and you've read, I have read, and we've been here for you know usually people will just tune in for like a few minutes just to see if I've been talking about them. And it's like they can say nasty shit about me on Facebook or whatever. It's like, oh, Alex is, Alex talked about us. I live rent free in a lot of people's heads. I feel sorry for the poor bastards who are like, you know, flashing, forward, you know, like a 3.5 hour, you know, conversation, which is basically mostly two, two, two ridiculous men sort of babbling about Madonna and Gaga
Uh-huh.
and eating, snacks and showing off their stuffed animals. That's they'll be like very disappointed.
Very disappointed.
Right. So there's a ritual that we always do to close up the Small Bear Show, and it's called a squeezy hug. And it's very simple. So you know, you don't necessarily have to involve the animal. I mean, if you can, if you like. So it's a sort of like that. You do a squeezy hug, and I love you, and you're my friend, and you're always welcome to send me anything for the Small Bear Review, and I will publish it. And then if you want to be part of our film, you'll be part
Yes.
of our film. So really appreciate all of your great work, and your poem, which is called Untitled, is going to be in just one of the most amazing lineup of any anthology that's going to come out you know, within, say, the circumference of like between 2012 and 2028. That's how good this book is. And it's going to be groundbreaking, and people are going to ask, how the hell did he do it? And I'm going to say, well, you haven't been paying attention, right? So,
Uh-huh.
okay, cheers, and we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Thank you. I
Okay,
had so much fun.
me too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.